coffee growing processes. Investor Friend Plan. We support Juan Valdez coffee grower shareholders from more than 18 departments of Colombia who benefit from the purchase of their coffee at a higher price per program. Inclusive procurement. More than 16,000 Juan Valdez products from vulnerable communities have been marketed in Juan Valdez stores. We positively impact suppliers in vulnerable situations by purchasing agricultural supplies and brand items or merch. And what does Juan Valdez do through diversity, inclusion, and equity? In alliance with Best Buddies Colombia, we created the Amigos del Alma program to promote work inclusion for people with intellectual disabilities. Currently, 76 Amigos del Alma work as baristas in Juan Valdez stores or in administrative office labors. And what about the environment? Juan Valdez wants to take care of the environment and ecosystems where coffee growing takes place. We have the organic and finca coffees, which have quality seals and certifications. With these coffees, we demonstrate the commitment of the coffee growers with the environment and sustainable agriculture. Since 2021, Juan Valdez has been a certified B company. This identifies us as a source of social and environmental impact from our business model. To ratify this, in 2022, we joined the United Nations Race to Zero initiative. We pledged to be a zero net emissions company by 2050. We know that climate action must be accompanied by circular economy programs that enable the reduction, reuse, and recycling of materials. Through our circular economy programs, we have achieved transforming more than 1,990 units of furniture under our We Reuse as Much as Possible program, serving more than 170,000 beverages in reusable cups thanks to Reusable Cup, changing 83.4% of sandwich and salad packaging, significantly reducing the use of single-use plastics. At Juan Valdez, we continue to be committed with actions that positively impact the lives of those who make it possible for the best 100% Colombian premium coffee to reach the entire planet. We hope to continue generating value and enhancing the work of the more than 548,000 coffee-growing families that work every day for the world to know its first harvest. Juan Valdez. Juan Valdez, the brand of the Colombian coffee growers, has a clear purpose: to generate value to over 548,000 coffee-growing families. How do we do it?
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be beginning in approximately 3 or 4 minutes, so please begin to take your seats. Thank you.
Positively impacted more than 1,350 coffee growers in commercialization processes and over 440 through our strengthening platform with over 13,000 hours of courses on diverse topics. What are they? Women coffee growers. 31% of coffee producers in Colombia are women. With this program, we actively work towards an effective and expanding gender equity in every coffee field. Young coffee growers. Only 3% of Colombian coffee growers are under 28 years of age. With this program, we accompany and support young coffee growers that work and participate. Investor Friend Plan. We support Juan Valdez coffee grower shareholders from more than 18 departments of Colombia who benefit from the purchase of their coffee at a higher price per program. Inclusive procurement. More than 16,000 Juan Valdez products from vulnerable communities have been marketed in Juan Valdez stores. We positively impact suppliers in vulnerable situations by purchasing agricultural supplies and brand items or merch. And what does Juan Valdez do through diversity, inclusion, and equity? In alliance with Best Buddies Colombia, we created the Amigos del Alma program to promote work inclusion for people with intellectual disabilities. Currently, 76 Amigos del Alma work as baristas in Juan Valdez stores or in administrative office labors. And what about the environment? Juan Valdez wants to take care of the environment and ecosystems where coffee
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will get started in 2 minutes. Please. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for coming. Our second morning of Conversations Agri-Cafe of the Americas in the Sustainable Agriculture of the Americas Pavilion. And thank you to the online audience that's joining us as well. We have several 100,000 people that are probably going to see this in the next day or so. We're delighted to have all of you back with us in the pavilion here at COP28. I want to also just give a quick thank you to Juan Valdez, who's provided us with wonderful coffee from Colombia. Please be sure to help yourself. Thank you to Producers Trust, Producers Market, Veronica, for all the work you've done to bring a sustainable coffee to us here in our pavilion this week. And my name is Margaret Ziegler, and I'm just pleased to welcome you. I work with the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture. And ICA, this is our pavilion, and the Pavilion of the Americas, the Ministries of Agriculture of the 34 member states. So today we have a wonderful opportunity to hear from a distinguished friend and gentleman of ours, Victor Villalobos, the Minister of Agriculture of Mexico. I'm going to turn it over now to Danielle Niederenberg of Food Tank to manage and talk and discuss with him a lot of key issues that we need to learn about Mexico and about what they're doing to fight climate change. So Danielle, welcome.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Let's give Margaret a round of applause for all the great work she's been doing with this wonderful pavilion, bringing so many voices and so many people together. So thanks to her. Before we begin with the Secretary, I want to give a few updates about what's been happening in the last few days at COP. It looks like that the negotiations for the global stocktake have made a little bit of progress. Food and agriculture are now back in the language. Unfortunately, there's not a really sufficient mention of food systems to elevate food system transformation. And unfortunately, the term food systems is not yet included in the global stocktake, which means that there's no mention of food loss and food waste as a key lever for climate mitigation and adaptation. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. They have time left, so I hope that food and agriculture get back into the language in a big way. Yesterday, UNEP released its What's Cooking report about novel proteins and cellular agriculture as a potential way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, minimize the risk of zoonotic diseases, and prevent deforestation and land degradation. I encourage people to check it out. I know it will cause a lot of controversy in this space, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. And I am excited to announce that the Abu Dhabi Bank, KPMG, and the Islamic Trade Finance Corporation released a new report on leveraging finance for food system security and climate resilience. So I encourage everyone to look at that. And finally, it looks like the next COP will be in Azerbaijan, so we'll wait to hear more about that. But I'm so pleased and honored to be sitting here with the Secretary, and I want to just dive into the conversation. I know how busy you are. You'll be with Secretary Vilsack later today. But to just sort of begin, I'm wondering, Secretario, what you've thought of the conversations you've heard at COP so far.
Okay, well, first let me thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and welcome to everybody. Danny, thank you for the interview. Um, it is, let me just mention that it is very important for Secretary of Agriculture, particularly Secretary of Agriculture for a country like Mexico, which is, I would say, the boat for a rural environment, and we are traditionally very linked historically to agriculture. So for me, as a secretary, as a responsible for the policies of agriculture in my country, it has been very important to participate in such an important event that is dealing with climate change and how climate change impact not only the life of everybody, but in particular for agriculture. So it has been a very, very important opportunity for me to be here during this important COP28.
And I'm wondering if you can talk about the impact on small-scale farmers of why we're here. What is the climate crisis doing to small-scale farmers and farmers in general in Mexico?
Well, of course, like in Mexico, like in many other countries, all these impacts affects agriculture. What we see, particularly the impacts that the last years, due to different environmental factors that impacts agriculture, we see an increase in problems in availability of water. This is one of the major aspects. But let me just share with you that last September of this year, that was the hottest September being registered in all information since 1941.
Wow.
So the temperature in September, this September, was 3 degrees higher than the average. So our agriculture, in general terms, in 70% depends of the fall rain, depends of course, the climatic conditions, and that's it's associated with the poorest communities.
Right.
So the impact of this high temperature, the lack of rain, and also the problems associated with some pests and disease really impacts this particular year the production that we estimate. I mean, it's an estimation because at the end of the early next year, we will have the solid data of that, but perhaps the cereals, particularly corn and beans, will be reduced in the order of 28-30% of production because of the weather impact in this particular year.
And that will increase prices for everyone.
Sorry?
That will increase prices of food for everyone in Mexico and elsewhere.
Yes, yes. So this is so far what we see, and of course, as responsible for agriculture and considering the factors that affect the year production of cereals and grains, we have to implement the mechanisms or to briefly apply some systems or mechanisms through which we can overcome this problem. We know that the problem will require solutions in the middle and long term, but some simple techniques, making a proper use of different tools, then we can be able to overcome this problem. And let me briefly mention what are we talking about of these tools. We cannot consider the water problem without taking in consideration the proper management of soil.
Right.
So our soils in a high proportion are very poor on organic matter. So the incorporation of residues of the harvest being incorporated in the soil will not just only make the soil more fertile, but also will provide the ability and the capacity to retain moist, and of course to facilitate the development of microorganisms that facilitate the digestion and of course the uptake of the minerals and organic matter that is in the soil. So more or less we are being training, and we through extension communication to the farmers. In about 100,000 farmers already are gradually involved in the implementation of these simple practices that eventually will increase productivity, even that we are again suffering for the lack of water, and we anticipate that the coming year will be more or less the same as this year. So we have to keep the production. We have to maintain for self-sufficiency, particularly the poorest communities. And at the same time, we have, of course, to facilitate in the access of these new technologies or practical technologies that we already share with them.
Right, right. In a lot of ways, you're using tools and practices that are people used a long time ago. They're not new innovations. They're
Yes.
old technologies in a lot of ways.
Yeah, those are practices that are there. But let me just mention that more recently, and this is something that comes with, since we mentioned Secretary Bilzak, I think we share a lot of the same views regarding the need to incorporate the most advanced tools in order to make our agriculture more efficient. So we understand that we have to increase productivity without expanding the frontier of agricultural land. So for that, we have to raise productivity in the land that we already have for that purpose. So what now we are doing is, so we are measure the water footprint with different irrigated areas through which we already know that they are using more water than what they need. So we are convinced that we can reduce the use of irrigated water in the fields without affecting productivity. And that's in the case of corn. We already provide scientific information from this measure, the water footprint impact or reduction mechanism. So we now are convincing the farmers that we can reduce the water, the irrigation for corn production without, again, reducing the production. So
Sure.
it has been, again, a simple technique, but now it's at the level of the farmer.
Right, and this partnership, this collaboration you have with Secretary Vilsack and the United States Department of Agriculture is to increase the access to technologies between Mexico and the United States.
Yes. Yeah, we several times discussed that in the order to integrate or complement North American market, in which we are, again, we are complementary with the United States and Canada on the scope of our trade, then we have to be able to provide products that are very competitive, that are in good conditions, that are sound in terms of what the consumers demand. And for that reason, the need to exchange more information,
Right.
the need to reinforce our trade, the need to complement what the sector offer for the two countries, integrates a North American market in which we are interdependent, if we can say that. And we share that view with Secretary Vilsack, and this is something that we see that it will increase gradually, because it is our future, and I think North America will be capable enough to provide the food that our societies require or demand, but also we have to recognize that we need to play a more important role as a provider for food worldwide. And that's something that, again, we share with Secretary Vilsack.
I think that interdependency between the two countries is something that can be used as an example for the rest of the world. You realize that you're dependent on one another. You need to build a resilience in both countries to make sure that you can continue producing food in a way that will feed the population.
Yes, we have a very good examples of that. For instance, we export cattle livestock in order, more or less 1 million heads every year to United States, and we import cuts, meat from United States being elaborated, and that's a way in which we can see this complementary effort in order to attend the demand of the consumer on both sides of the border.
Sure.
Poultry is another good example in which we are self-sufficient, we control pest and disease, we recognize the mechanism for SPS in between the countries. So we are gradually moving to a more integrated region rather than establish mechanisms through which we have to negotiate or we have to go through different processes that in the past they were there. Now it's more fluent because we respond to the demands of our society or consumers. So it is very important, and I really am very pleased and enjoy this relationship with Secretary Vilsack because we get together 2 or 3 times a year, we discuss, we have the telephone conversations, we try to tackle problems when they arise, and we see the necessary role that we have to play for particular SPS, the problems that we are facing, like swine fever or others, if we don't work together, if some happen, whether in Mexico or United States, that will affect the whole region.
Right.
So we have to have a very fluent communication and share views and actions and support together other countries as well.
Right, and I imagine research as well, because one thing I appreciate about you, Secretary, is that you're heavily involved as an honorary chair for CIMMYT, which is the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center in Mexico. And I want you to talk a little bit about why the government of Mexico and other governments really need to interact with researchers who are working on the ground in agriculture.
Yes. Of course, we have our national capacity, and we have our institute that accompanies the technical arm of the Secretary of Agriculture, and they are permanently associated with not just only the problems that we are facing, the problems associated with the genetic improvement of new crops or seeds that will tolerate drought or other diseases, but also we cannot be isolated. We have to be open and be able to have an interaction with other countries. We see our important role or increasing important role in Central American countries, Caribbean countries, and South America, and we stimulate, and I personally, since I used to work as a Director General of AICA, I know, and I assume that they know me in the ministers in other countries. So that facilitates, and so we can just make a phone call. I have this problem. I know that you have experts or scientists that understand and know this, and and we are very open in that respect. So it's very important to share knowledge. It's very important to create the mechanisms through which we can exchange information, exchange scientific experts, and that's what we have been doing, and this is something. And in particular with United States and Canada, again, it's very fluent, and there are people always moving back and forth, and whether we are talking about problems associated with forestry or different crops or livestock, there is a permanent communication. To me, is it the only way, and we are talking about how we can guarantee the SPS conditions of our region needs to be considered in an integrated way. Otherwise, we cannot really sustain our capacity.
Sure.
And let me just briefly mention that that's what I will feel very proud that because of this reputation, now Mexico is enjoying a very important role as a provider of food worldwide. We are the seventh exporter country of the world of agriculture products, and we export to 191 different countries, many different products. And I think Mexico, as a difference of other countries, perhaps our advantage is the diversity.
Right.
We can produce many different products, and we can produce all the year around because of our strategic geographic position.
Right.
And because nature provides us with such an important biodiversity, different germoplants of different species, whether we're talking about microorganisms with animals and plants.
Sure.
So it's very strategic for us.
Absolutely.
And we are very happy with that.
Absolutely. Secretary, you mentioned before that the poorest people are usually affected the most by the climate crisis.
Yes.
And I wonder how Mexico looks at making sure that small and medium scale farmers in the country aren't left behind by, some of the new technologies that are climate smart, that we still support, that you can still support those small and medium scale farmers.
Well, thank you for the question. Let me mention that we implement a program to provide free fertilizer for the poorest farmers, which is the highest proportion of our rural society. So we start with one state as a pilot program, and that was in 2019. But now we have the program being implemented in the whole country. And the size of this program is that we moved this year 1 million tons of fertilizer to 2 million farmers and beneficiate almost 4 million hectares. For small producers that with this fertilizer, they raise the productivity, they are able to fulfill their needs, but also in some cases they are selling selling their beans and corn or rice to the local markets. So we raise the production of particularly corn and beans from the information coming from the last year in about 6 million tons in general. And that's the response, and that's the impact of this program. The cost of the program this year is almost $1,000 million. And again, it's been covered all the country. And we beneficiate a little less than 2 million people. So it is a huge program because, as you remember, due to the conflict in between with Russia and Ukraine, the cost of the fertilizer was almost more than double.
Right, triple.
So we were able to provide fertilizer that is being produced in an important proportion in Mexico, and we import fertilizer. We are talking about nitrogen and nitrogen phosphate. We provide to the farmers, and in the very critical conditions, we were able to raise the productivity. So that really beneficiates the poorest people of our field lands, and the people that usually need or they don't fulfill their demand. They have to buy corn or they have to buy beans, but now according with our data, they are self-sufficient in high proportion, I would say.
Thank you, Secretary. I want to turn to the topic of deforestation now. And Mexico aims to achieve net zero deforestation by 2030. How will partnerships between farmers and the private sector help you achieve that?
Yeah, well, let me just briefly mention that forestry is not in the responsibility of the Secretary of Agriculture. It's in the environment. But yet we participate. Of course, we need to be involved in forestry activities in the country, particularly providing technical assistance, providing germoplasts, superior material for multiplication. So, but this government, in this administration, they launched a program we call Sembrando Vida. And the, the scope, the objective of this program is to reforestate the land, particularly in the southern part of the country. The beginning, the objective was to reforestate 1 million hectares from not just only forest species, but also fruit trees and other crops. So it is a program that is going on. There are more than, a little less than 500,000 people involved in this reforestation program. They receive economical support monthly, and they are taking care of their reforestation land of the area, which is a proportion of the different land that they own, and they are taking care of that. This program is, of course, is going to end with the administration next year, but according with the information that again is on the hands of another ministry or secretary, but I think that what we are going to see is an incrementation of reforestation area, particularly in the southern part of Mexico. The problem that is being tackled, and I think that's a good strategy, is that normally in Chiapas, Tabasco, southern Veracruz, what they do is slash and burn technology. And that really affects soil and environment and, of course, all the problems that we understand. But when you offer them perennial species like coffee, cocoa, mangoes, they will not burn anymore. So that's a way through which we stop that practice, and of course, we promote and assist the farmers with the proper genetic material in order to, in the long term, they will receive or they will be able to commercialize their product along what they call milpa, which is the traditional way to cultivate beans, corn, and other products for self-sufficient chiles and others. So it's a very interesting mix in which we rescue some traditional ways to handle their milpa, the way that they cultivate the land, but at the same time we are gradually protecting the environment, protecting the soil,
Right.
and avoid slash and burn technology that really we really want to eradicate for that part of the country.
And again, building resilience, building soils, doing all the things necessary to continue agriculture over the long term in a sustainable way.
Yes, of course, yes.
So my final question, Secretary, because we're running out of time, is what are your hopes for this COP? What are your hopes coming out of the next few days?
Well, there are very different ways in which I see, but what I would like to hope this as an outcome of this very important venue, a very important COP28, is that agriculture should be more active involved. If we are talking about environment, if we are talking about climate change, if we are talking about CO2 emissions or global warming, agriculture cannot be excluded, should be more active involved. We also would like to see that in that respect, there is the consideration that we would like to discuss in this fora, that agriculture is not the responsible for many of the impacts that are being created in this problem in the environment. And yet, what in my impression is that agriculture can really play a very important role to overcome and reduce emissions with a good technical practice that are already available, and we have to implement it. So it is not an activity that should be blamed for this impact, particularly in livestock and cattle. It is, there's coming new ways through which we have to consider agriculture as part of the solution. And let me briefly mention one of these practice again is how we should manage properly the soils, because the soil retains the CO2, so it has been sequestrated in the soils, and if we make a proper management of soil, this is a practical mechanism to reduce emissions. And this is something that, since all of us emit CO2, then we have to take in consideration what are the mechanisms through which we can make the opposite. And agriculture, forestry, forest land do that. And the plants do that for us.
Right.
So we should keep that as a strategy and make an extension, or extend the understanding, not just only for the farmers, they are very smart, they know how to do it, but for the society in general, that agriculture is part of the solution.
Agriculture is part of the solution. Thank you so much, Secretary, for your time. Margaret, do we have time for questions? Does anyone have questions from the audience? Hi, nice to see you. Hi. We'll get you a mic.
Say your name and we're...
Hi, I'm Chris Hagedorn, consulting with Chatham House. Danny, nice to see you. Thank you, IECA, for this, and Mr. Minister, great to hear your remarks. Tomorrow there's a launch of an Alliance of Champions for Food Systems Transformation. It's a small number of countries who are intending to be the first movers and be committed to very public leadership on transformation of food systems. Why isn't Mexico among those countries? You'll hear more about this in the declaration implementation. I believe Mexico is showing leadership on nutrition, on agroecology. There's lots to be proud of. Why isn't Mexico on that stage tomorrow?
Well, thank you. Again, well, we are, in the past, we haven't been able to participate in this forum, but when we are talking about other responsibilities in the country and the role that we play in the region, of course, we actively participate with the practical actions. So we like to take this in consideration, because if there is any mechanism beyond or more than the ones that we are already implemented, we will be happy to do it. And if there is any possibility for us, so we are three here as a agriculture delegation, so but we want to cover as much as we can. And then, of course, we are taking notes, and we certainly we will be able to participate more actively, because we need information, but we are willing to share what our experience is. So we are open, and if there is any possibility, then we will participate, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments for the Secretary? Well, wonderful. This has been really exciting. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much to everybody.
Round of applause.